You walk into a coffee house. Two coffees. One costs $8, the other $15. They look identical. You spend 5 minutes deciding. This scene repeats millions of times a day. And it seems absurd. It's just coffee. But your brain is doing something fascinating, and completely invisible to you. When you're choosing between those two coffees, you're not really deciding about coffee. You're deciding about what that choice says about you. And that's where everything gets complicated. Here's what happens inside your head during those 5 minutes. First, your instinct system activates. It says, grab the cheaper one, save money. Fast, automatic, efficient. Your ancestors would have loved this system. But then your analytical brain kicks in. It starts asking questions. Wait, what if the expensive one is actually better? What if I'm being stingy? What if I'm wasting money on something that doesn't matter? And then, this is the part almost nobody notices, your social brain activates. And it asks the question that really matters: what will people think of me if I choose the cheap coffee? Will they think I'm poor? Will they think I'm frugal? Will they judge me? That's where the 5-minute decision is born. Your brain is running 3 completely different systems simultaneously, and they're frequently in conflict. Your instinct wants efficiency. Your analysis wants optimization. Your social brain wants approval. And none of them are talking to each other. The detail that makes this even more complex is that you're not conscious of any of it. You think you're deciding about coffee. But you're actually deciding about identity. You're deciding who you are, or at least who you want people to think you are. Researchers discovered something fascinating about this. When people make decisions alone, when nobody is watching, they make different choices than when they're being observed. Not because they're dishonest. But because the social brain activates differently depending on whether there's an audience. In one study, they asked people to choose between a healthy snack and an unhealthy one. When they thought they were alone, they chose the unhealthy snack more often. When they thought someone was watching, they chose the healthy one. Same person, same options, different choice. The only variable was whether they felt observed. Now imagine that coffee house. You're not alone. There's a barista. There might be other customers. Even if they're not paying attention to you, your brain doesn't know that. Your social brain assumes they are. So it activates the approval-seeking system. And here's where it gets really interesting. Your brain doesn't just care about what people think now. It cares about what people will think later. It's thinking about your reputation. Your status. Your belonging to the group. Your ancestors understood this deeply. In a small tribe of 150 people, your reputation was everything. If people thought you were wasteful, you'd be excluded from hunts. If they thought you were stingy, you'd be seen as selfish. If they thought you were foolish, you'd lose status. So your brain evolved to be obsessed with managing your image. But here's the problem: you don't live in a tribe of 150 people anymore. You live in a world of billions. And your brain is still running the same reputation management software it ran 50,000 years ago. So when you're choosing between two coffees, your brain is treating it like a tribal decision. It's analyzing what that choice will communicate about your status, your values, your belonging. It's running calculations about social consequences that don't actually exist. The most surprising part is that this happens even when you're alone. Even when nobody is watching. Because your brain has internalized the observer. You've become your own audience. You judge yourself the way you imagine others would judge you. That's why people make different choices in private than in public. Not because they're hypocrites. But because the social brain is always listening, always watching, always calculating. What makes this even more complicated is that you've been taught to ignore it. You've been told to just decide or stop overthinking. But you can't turn off the social brain. It's not a choice. It's a system that's been running for millions of years. The detail almost nobody notices is that the coffeehouse decision is actually a proxy for bigger decisions. The same three-system conflict that happens with coffee happens with career choices, relationship decisions, what to wear, what to say, where to live. Every decision you make is filtered through this social calculation. Your ancestors made decisions based on survival and belonging. You make decisions based on the same systems, but the stakes are different. Choosing the wrong coffee won't get you excluded from the tribe. But your brain doesn't know that. It's still running the old software. So what really happens when you finally choose? You don't choose based on logic. You choose based on which system wins the internal conflict. Sometimes your instinct wins and you grab the cheap coffee. Sometimes your social brain wins and you grab the expensive one. Sometimes your analysis wins and you spend 5 minutes researching reviews on your phone. The person next to you makes a different choice. Not because they're smarter or more decisive. But because their three systems have a different hierarchy. Their social brain might be quieter. Their instinct might be stronger. Their analysis might be faster. That's why the same person makes different choices at different times. It's not inconsistency. It's just that the internal hierarchy changes depending on context, mood, stress level, and who's watching. The most important detail is that recognizing this doesn't make it disappear. You can't logic your way out of the social brain. But you can understand it. You can recognize when it's activated. You can notice the three systems in conflict. And maybe, just maybe, you'll spend less time deciding about coffee and more time deciding about things that actually matter.